Anzo Janju Sem Gulaki Tablam Nyamsule de la Anzoke and the Gutu Sam Daje and then Yamlencha Ores, the Gutu de Carasena, Anzoke Marcia Bada, Simjadam Jarangi Machi Noa Temba, Marcia Vaje, and the Simjadam Jarala, Jin Chembo Imba Jin Temba the chair. And that day, Jin Chembo in the party, Len Jogging, Sipin Sova the chair. The net jamba, Simjadam Jalamine Jamba Combeata. And the Simjadam Jalamine, then Niji Comia. The Nessimja Tamche, there was a Divi Temba, the Dungalta Dunga Gudan Trawadi, Nichi in Sibyl Hassanamda. Ye di Gutuk chair. That is Jelada, Simjatamje, there was a Divi Temba Dunga the Trawa, the Nichi in Simbainza, and then Simjatamchi to the San Yoko Toper Show, Sibet Janju Simkia, the Reche. On the Janju Simkia, the Gutuk some Taji Kioreche. That Gutuk Nananzo, that in Marcia, Simjan Jarangi Machi Noa, and the Tinchemo in body she Sarsia. Then I was Hankasan. Karakozu Baresine, Simjatam Jarang, Tincham was a partin so or said the partin so airport Sherwa. She in the Kotsurwa down.
Good evening. So we've been looking at the last number of weeks at the method for generating bodhicitta of the 6 causes that lead to the one effect of bodhicitta. We started by looking at the basis upon which the 6 causes are cultivated, and that is impartiality. And thereafter, we looked at the first of the 6 causes, which is the intimate relationship that we have with all beings, that of parent and child. Thereafter, we looked at the tremendous kindness that they have shown us directly in that relationship, as well as in a wide number of other relationships, as well as indirectly and directly being of great benefit to us across lifetimes. Now we at the third stage, which is looking, which comes about independence on the preceding stages, which is the sincere wish to repay that kindness. And thereafter come the steps on generating love and compassion, wanting all beings to experience only lasting, stable happiness and accumulate those causes, and be freed of suffering completely and eradicate the causes that would otherwise lead to that. And then coming to the final cause, which is the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, where the yogin takes responsibility to ensure that all beings do achieve the state freed of suffering and of lasting, stable happiness. And that there is the 6th cause, the final cause, that leads to the ripening effects of the generation of bodhicitta. So tonight then, we'll continue with where we left off last week on page 35, looking at the cultivation of that 3rd cause, repaying the kindness of our mother sentient beings.
Jin Chembo in the good in Chembo in Zanda party land choco horse, the name Zadanga to kissing Karashevers. Leda Numo Ungu Koa like you taking Simjan Sangma and Rala Jin Chembore, the name and this Simjan to get Yasan near Garnish near Yorasena, Chasan Dewa Debare, Dunga Dugo Mare, Dewa Deba Dunga Midubare. In a that Dewa di Tubia Tablamla and Besuchi do Garbesuchi Gorsene. Dasha control idea, D. Ya Bishu Danje, Bishu Yungur, Dinicheva inza, and Deltene, Dungas Mato, Dewa Yungo Maris. Dunga say Tablam dea, Dasha control idea, Gijan Tablam Dichidu, and Dunga Yamato, and Dewa Deva, and Deva, Dewa Susu, Dewa Dosiobadi, Meva Susha Gores. Dini inza, Denigi, Leda Numo Ungi, Dasha control idea, Gijan, and Digi, Rawa Meba. And in Yomanashi, Ramabanashi, Dene Ramabare, Dineza, and Dichena, and Tarvata Tamchini go top to Dichena, Lada Mugo, top to Gure said, Dijevana, Nyawa Tigre, and Anson Tigre Sipiki, the Lenny Chipiki, Namiki, Namuchi, shut up the Mevachare, Meva Yomars, shut up Mevare. That's also in the Nichi, how to go mare, how go Matumazona, and Delia. The Lam Rim Text give Shinya and the Galaka Chagor, Garson, Benedigo, Yawabata, Idata, Dundrola Sopata, Gazmi name. 지체로 럽니 마지게 도나메디게 미디게나 다 데네게 기비신데 나 자송어봐 디네자 디네 강아도 디네자 다 디네게 지소심전 사마라라 진친보레 다도 콘조케진 지 강아 주의디 갑라 디네게 콘졸야 디기 주야도 동아세야야 지 콘졸야 딘레지 펜바지 두고레 선배 삼당고레 세정아 저기지 디고르 슈르와다 제사다 콘주랑을 진침보자 델랑이 펜바 두고레서 삼당랑이 콘졸야 펜바 두기에서 삼당고레서 디로 타마디
Having reflected then on the tremendous kindness that Mother Sentient Beings have shown us since beginningless time, naturally, in dependence on this, the wish arises to repay that kindness. And then last week we started to look at this presentation, seeing that our Mother Sentient Beings continue to take uncontrolled rebirth in the suffering realms of samsara due to the contaminated karma that they themselves have accumulated due to being under the influence of their afflicted minds, being under the absolute control of their afflicted minds. And all our Mother Sentient Beings yearn for happiness and freedom from all forms of pain and misery, and to try and avert problems and difficulties in their lives and achieve happiness. They engage in a variety of activities, physical and verbal, all motivated, though, by the afflicted minds. Being motivated by the afflicted minds, the vast majority of causes that our Mother Sentient Beings accumulate are causes that will lead to further suffering. Occasionally, they also accumulate causes for happiness, but even this happiness is transient. It's brief, it's not lasting, and it's of small value. Beings stuck in this situation, if they're not already in the lower realms, the causes for rebirth in the lower realms is what is often created. When they fall into the lower realms, it's very difficult there for them to create the causes to gain freedom from such a suffering rebirth. And they're trapped in this situation, the cyclic turning of this wheel of samsara due to being blinded by the ignorance of confusion, of not knowing what the causes are that will lead to actual happiness and how to accumulate them, not knowing what are the causes that lead to suffering and how to abandon them. So this darkness of confusion is a place where wisdom is yet to be generated. And compounding the difficulty of the difficult situation that our Mother Sentient Beings are in is that, trapped in this darkness, often in a rebirth in the lower realms, it's almost impossible for them to come under the care of a qualified spiritual teacher, a spiritual teacher who can skillfully guide them to liberation. So reflecting like this, heartfelt yearning arises within oneself. Let me be of benefit to them. Let me aid them in their time of need.
Adu sinang zogi sam tangwa de kasa simjan tamja rangi mache nyoware rangle tinchi bore sam ta da dine sam ta ne ndi chele ya simjan tamje tinchi bode ge dang ne thang ganesh tu labna dewa debare dunga dugo mare ine ya ane ji nyomo ba je dewa du ge don dala dine ge de sha khong zhang ga je je digi da gang a je ge du simbe ge dine ge sam na ta jang zo je ba je sim ju che che dine gang a je ge yo ba da dine ge yo ba tong yo de ane ga so la ka dine ge sam da ka long os o dang e ane kon zo le ro ba che go du pen ba ju go du simbe ge sam lo di le tu go ba be na ga je sa dine jang an zu sam lo na la 콘솔 리심절에 펜바지 주고도 콘솔 로바 제고도 선배게 삼로지 용야라 용야게 된다라 내는 콘솔 양말에 진침보래 깨진 침보래 세상 콘솔 깨진 침보래 내가 내타 될 다들 콘솔 강아에 되니시도 세야데 삼다에 되네 난절바 콘솔이야 즉 펜바 두고도 강한 세야를 로고 제고도 선배 삼로디 기투고로 디기에 투비가 된다라 기에 약보지 기에 된다라는 걸 설명했던 곳에는 진천보리 세삼다야지다 대디 진천보리에 대디 내가블 컨트롤 강한 데니티 도와 선배게 삼당 당고에 김세로 뒤로와
Through having reflected well on the tremendous kindness that beings have shown us, that spontaneously, naturally within us arises the wish to repay that kindness. And knowing that beings only want happiness, and they don't want to experience a moment of pain or misery, yet remain under the control that they are without any freedom because they are under the control of the afflicted minds. We then commit to helping them in this desperate time. So this wish to be of benefit to them arises within us, independent on the prior cultivation of the clear recognition of the kindness that beings have shown us, and our close, intimate and interwoven relationship that we share with all beings.
소수기 소수야 배년이 보지 소수를 배마스 판도 친구 그든 친구 쉬우 주여바지 지금 판도 시간 주여바 있나 당은 저기 그든 친구 임 하고 그러와 드네자 나 콜리아 강아시 체 강아 주여바 강아 주여바 쉬우 주여바 통송 바 나가 저 가슴다서 오다닝 미팅 알이야 뱀마스 알 그든 친구 이 알이야 판도 친구 당아 콜리아 강아 체샤 당알이야 지미 콜리아 로바치 마진데 지금도 선배 삼로디 레투 그러와 then Pajodi getting Chimbu Rale Pandochima getting Chimbu Jubaina, and call a Ganga Gardu you made the Ganga Mevaina, and call a Ganga Mena, call a Robachi with some Kia Marvata. Roa, Chazan call a Ganga Yumi and some Matabane, call Robachi with some Ki Marva. And Dina Shin Jeda, as a getting Chimbodi, Konga Ganga Yubading as a Hagoyodu, or call a Robachi or Danga, call a getting Chimbu and big some Ligurova, getting Chimbu and Zanga. 다데 코강아 티징이 로고 제고 선배 삼 리기로와 디나지로와 심전담제 랑게 마제 녀와 랑레 딘침부 임바 삼다와이네 콜레 강아 여바 삼마 마삼나 콜로 로고 제고 선배 삼르제 말하고 강아면 로고 제고요 말바데 로고 진짜 리기 말와 진짜 다게는 침부레 저 삼다 다도 강아 되는데 여러 삼다도 오다디니 인자 콜로 로고 제고 선배 삼르디 레후고라 레 기투고로 디디 삼기 얘기도 나디로다
The way to understand perhaps we can say the psychology behind this meditation technique is that if you think of a loved one who has shown you tremendous kindness in this life, so you have a clear recollection of the beneficial relationship that you have, and you still are emotionally close to this person. When knowing that this person, like you, only wants to experience happiness, be freed of problems, when you know that they are in a desperate situation, when they're in pain and when they're in misery, naturally the wish will arise within you to help them. If on the other hand, this same person who you feel great closeness towards and love and affection for, if you consider their situation as quite remarkable and how fortunate they are and they have everything that they can be desired, how lucky they are, no wish to be of benefit to them, no wish to help them will arise within oneself. So similarly, now with the object not just of one, a close loved one, but with all kind mother sentient beings. We're training here to recognize the reality of their situation. Because if we think that, oh, some are so lucky, some have such good fortune, these samsaric beings, actually their situation's okay, the wish to rise up and be there for them will not arise. So therefore we need to understand clearly the actual situation, because that leads to a compulsion to help them.
Niejugi in jumne sa gomju kyorwe korwa da nga sunge yangsa nyam nga ro dimbi dunga shi nyam dhapa dinam Buddha mirena sulare says. Jene Made Dungale Drova Dala Mibabna Sulapap, say, on Dustin some down or that.
Now let's turn to the text. We're on page 35. Every day they further divorce themselves from happiness because of unwholesome actions of body, speech, and mind. Like members of a drunken procession staggering towards a cliff, they are stumbling over the precipice of unwholesome deeds into the sufferings of cyclic existence and the lower realms. Think, if I do not do something for these pathetic, feeble beings, who will? If responsibility for them does not fall upon my shoulders, upon whose will it fall?
Kontrakia, Gabriela Kontrakia, Gabriela Doshakia, Gabriela Ngayekia, on Dusine and Gachike, Gabriela Timu Maripakich, on Dusenda, Nimer Kichikilla, the nigger Yomo Benechu, Nebaki, Yomo Baki, Benedoshakia, the Dene, Dosha Diwangi, down Utila, Chapa Benesemjala, Chipene, Shala Chapa, Chapa Kevane, Semja Suya, the Semju Dunuena, Semja Suya, Suya La Sobada. And she Sosolia, and she digging news at some just so Magawachina, Delia Kondrakedu, Kondro Wange, and Susup Shea, and Chiga Delia Tuzeta, Kosu Atana, and Sochia La Sopada, and Chape Wangi, and Sosuge, Jala de Raya Tandalia, Shania Kohortaya, Junshia, the Nigi, and then Jingazu de Tesha, Kondro, Naja, Yomobakia, Digi Kunwa Chene, Cheba Lunga, Chebadi. 现在牛巴的，现在刚刚这边，觉吧，你决定的用过来时候，给这人性，你决意思，你决定的给过来是。
Looking at the first of those sentences, every day they further divorce themselves from happiness because of unwholesome actions of body, speech, and mind. And actually, if we look at it even closer, across the suffering realms of samsara, it's not a case of just every day. It's pretty much every moment of every day for almost all ordinary sentient beings, that the afflictions arise, and with their mere arisal leading to the accumulation of non-virtue, and usually these afflictions they're not acted under, and thereby compounding the non-virtue accumulated. For example, attachment arises, or pride, or jealousy, or anger, or ignorance. And from these, then beings engage in the variety of activities, thinking they're going to achieve happiness. But they end up engaging in activities such as conflict with others, taking the life of beings, taking advantage of others or deceiving them, taking what others value, doing so thinking they're creating happiness for themselves. But in reality, they are only accumulating further causes for suffering.
Lu nganzu gewe jawa chola mado wache ane migewe jawi chola padu wores gomdu yo kyorwe sede kyor sede kodu dio mado pa rido ade disigro wache sa dine sa nyomo ba jeyo du nyomo ba dige kharchigo re sen deja khondro ngaje nyomo ba jeyo du ane semde injumne se semde rangwa me ba ane gewe chola mado wache ane migewe chola pa migewe jawa chola pa ane kyorwo de wores. And dine kyordo migi jawa chedo and garle osne nyomoba lesaya lady ongu kowa danga solki gore dine mohobana nega midiwa mase mohobana garcho ma sonda nga solki kowa leki nga solki nga so ge yang sa lung yes je yang sa lung yo de ne nga so la ge de ne nyam nga war timbe sit be je 강아 셈래 강아 류 강아도 지는 무디네 동안 용거야 최고래 제래
Like members of a drunken procession staggering towards a cliff, they are stumbling over the precipice of unwholesome deeds into the sufferings of cyclic existence in the lower realms. What is being presented here is that not only are beings accumulating non-virtue in this way, but they are doing so without choice, without freedom, because they are under the control of the afflictive minds which have deceived them, led them to a state of confusion that leads them to think that this behavior is the path to happiness. But instead, like a drunken person walking along a precipice, it is almost certain that they will stumble and fall off the edge. And this is the position beings are in. The afflictions arise, they follow the guidance of these afflictions, creating ever stronger contaminated karma, which propels them into rebirth, largely into the lower realms, and if born there already, they remain in the lower realms. And this is the precipice that beings fall off again and again. The suffering that they experience is compounded, and in this way, it seems as if it's never going to end.
nga songe yangsa nyamngawa timbe sidu dan dim la de sar mangbu sigro da pen gabriel dundro la ya gabriel nyawa je gabriel dundro la je gabriel ida la je gabriel ya milike wa da de la la ke wa da korwi ki ko wal kordu sin kora korje ki din na du sin korn du bores.
Here we need to understand this, because it doesn't come across that clearly in English. But this is a process that is continuing again and again and again. Stumbling like a drunken fool, falling off precipice after precipice, creating ever more causes for suffering, life after life after life, remaining bound in suffering. We should understand this, reflect on this in the context of this, that in this way, it's a never-ending circle of suffering.
가르치에서는 다대기 류티게 렌체 동아 빠도 매번 용거에 차바디 가르치 버렸으네 개왕 아마기다 녀모부 되자 콘도 ngaja 녀모밖에 녀모부 왕기기 레사다 라와메바 셈라 라와메바 사데 디나데 엔좀바 라와메바 레사 레디 왕기다 나주기 동아 가서 둔돌에 깨와래 내 동아를 깨와래요도 난 될야 아니 지금 동아 빠도 매번 용거야 차데 강아 차디 개왕 아메기 레다 녀모밖에 되기지 제네 디기 자와 녀모 기회 디게 자와디 디베 자와를 제 기회 자와라 마도지 디베 자와 냐야제 디베 자와 지게도 레 남바사 디기 원교다 나솔레 개와레 소바 차고로와 둔도레 개와레 파스 김발레와 차고로와 나 데네 다데 둔도 개와레 제 동아 빠도 매바 용고로와 당한적에 데네 용고를 다 드누 둔도 다데 디 코로 다데 둔도 임베 냐갑텔라야 되차게야요로 콘도게야요레 아니 지기 ngajaje or nyomoba geayore tadi denu nyomoba gene denu digi nyomoba gene ane garson gewe jawala majaje migewe jawala ja jugoro digi wonga de lesa digi lesa go lengba moba na ya ngasole geawale machagor jisa timba se dine yane ya do geawale machagor wa
For us as humans, we can observe other humans and certainly animals. God, spirits, and hell beings are unseen. Maybe then it's better to start with those that we can observe, such as animals. You look at the situation of animals and see that they are in a pitiful situation, and that they are in this situation due to contaminated karma that in a life previous to this they accumulated under the control of their own afflicted minds. That karma, when it ripened, propelled the rebirth that they find themselves in now. This was a rebirth that they took without choice, with no freedom. And this was them falling off a precipice into the lower realms. And they're in this position because in their previous life, they accumulated non-virtuous karma under the influence of the afflictions. The afflictions, under the influence of the afflictions, virtuous karma is accumulated, but would not propel a rebirth into the lower realms. So here they find themselves in this situation due to the karma that they accumulated, the non-virtuous karma they accumulated under the influence of the afflictions. And now as animals, afflictions continue to arise. Attachment, anger, competitiveness, these all arise. And they continue to be tormented by them. They continue to act under the influence, the control of these afflictions, and thereby continue to accumulate ever more non-virtuous karma. Which means, when their time of death comes, at the very least they'll remain in the animal realm, if not fall to a greater suffering realm.
Lama Tia, led a Yomo on a Kiwalan Bachagor. Chesa Lumi, Lu Tien Delea, Dunga Yudunga, Yudunga, Nechawa Dunga, Tinikin Nazatan, Ganga Chene, Ganga Yongwedi, Dunga, Padume by Yongo Chagor, Dini, and to Mila Tinigi, Chitunga, Yohadi, and Namagi, Yomo be Wangi, Les Alegi, Wangi as to cover me call Luli Kiwale. Chesa Kiwalen, the Mandu Ludi. Dunga, because a Kaba Duji Dunga Chatter. Chazan Kaba Dunga in that, Delatine Dunga, Giada, Guru Dunga, Dunga Tamjiki, Ne, J, and then Ganga about me about Chequia. The neck Ganga Ted, Lula Ganga Ted, Ganga say Dondala, and Jig, Anjing Juki Karchor, Duachakia, Controkia, Numoke, Ninki, or Dunga about me. Then, another later, Duacha, Contro, Naja, Numoke, the new Langabasa, Digi Devotige, Mahobana, Kovakia, Mother Koral Tamere. Chesa Denegi, or do young to us and big that, as a Dushin, and some Tango or
Take that same reflection and now place it onto the situation of humans. So humans have attained this body in the same way, in that, in a previous life, under the control of the afflictions, karma that is contaminated was created, and it ripened at the time of death, propelling rebirth into the human realm. And with this basis of these contaminated, appropriated aggregates, we have the basis that ensures we suffer, that we experience continuously the suffering of physical and mental pain, as well as the suffering of transient happiness. We have no control over these experiences because of this basis that we have. And the pitiful situation of where humans find themselves is just like animals. Due to having this basis of suffering, this illustration of all-pervasive suffering, the afflictions continue to arise unabated. They continue to deceive humans and ensure that, and thereby humans act under their control without freedom, creating ever more causes for suffering. So this is the situation humans find themselves in too.
Di wangi lenga basa lewa ngambi wangi dine kowa kie jenga zu mida dunro diki dunga nyongo ba di dine yungu yoba na da jikbar wada le da nyomo wangi da le sawa na bini nyawa da ida dunro na lhadi ki nga zu tungo ma di ina khonzo ina le da nyomo kiawa limba re chesa da nga zu 나주 미단 둔조라 강아 여바 나신녀 발레 딜레 강아 체여레 이달레 강아 체여레 되네 지게 할레 둔동아 여레 제가 디 동아 여바 차사 류기 풍보디 레다 녀모 깨발레바 동아에 가서 캬바두지 동아레 되어봐 되네 자 동아 규에 동아 근데 막 숙체종 빠도면 뭐 용어야 직바레 진짜 인자 다 감숨 코발이야 레다 녀모 깨발레 친제라 근데 동아라신 자야레도 와선베게 난 될래 데누 텐델라 냐오바 이나다 이다 이나다 라이나다 녀모 데누 콘솔레 되샤게 콘로게 녀모 바게 디원게랭아 바사고라 진짜 디원게 야자 니 코발레 깨발레 동아 녀아레도 와 당아주 데네기레도 와선베 삼다야 되죠다
We see then the similarity of position that humans and animals are in. That they're in the situation that they find themselves due to being propelled without freedom into this rebirth, due to contaminated karma accumulated by their own afflicted minds. And then in this rebirth, afflictions continue to arise, deceive the being, leading to ever more accumulation of contaminated karma, often non-virtuous. This is the case, as we've seen, for humans and animals. It's also the case for unseen beings, such as those in the lower realms of the hell realms and the pretas, or the spirits, as well as for samsaric gods. So whilst the suffering is so much more pronounced for beings in the lower realms compared to what we as humans have experienced, certainly we know that humans suffer, and even samsaric gods, they too suffer, because as long as a being has this basis of contaminated aggregates, they have the basis upon which suffering is experienced. And therefore, as long as beings continue to act without freedom under the control of the afflicted minds, contaminated karma is accumulated. All too often, this is non-virtuous. And therefore, beings without freedom continue to circle in cyclic existence.
Dine nyamgawa timbes and dungai she nyamdapa dinam seorta nyamdapa dinam budala mirena sulare sede. The digital in timbe nyamgawa timbe dunga she nyamdapa sashi. The chiloegi shoot in Madua. Timbe nyamgawa timbe. Dunga she nyamdapa dinam budala mirena sulare. Jesa denege du chende dene simchen denege nyamdapa be dunga nyong kanga kiawang ame leda nyoma date kanga dene nyong denu kiawa chimba ngason kiege lesa be nyamdapa tabshi me chike dewa dugo deba de dewa dugo ore ina dewa tuktugo mares dunga dugo marte ina dunga de mudine ledi go ore sede den be nyamdapa re shas den desom nyamdaba dinamse denige semjendige chasa deji dak sinyama ki shebanaje rale din chebo kedin chebo shu chires chisa konsugi na ngaleya konsugi kangage se dunga se le ngaleya rewa kyabgo ores ngale kyabo rewa kyabgo ores chisa ngale rewa majeno sul rewa kyabgo ores dusen samdang goreche.
Turning back to the text, the next sentence. Think, if I do not do something for these pathetic, feeble beings, who will? So having reflected in the way that we do, certainly we'll have an appreciation for the desperate situation that sentient beings all find themselves in, that they remain due to their own confusion and thereby their own actions, bound within this prison of pain, without any experience of freedom. And then thereafter, the thought will come to us, if they can't rely on me to help them, then who can they turn to?
Bene susurang rang shandachi ngaro ya pe kedin shimbu kyosha setili ngaro zu punja da phama la sopa da tangor sosu chopa sosu pe kang chi sosu le phan ya bo shu de ya bo shu jian ji ne ko kale shu kha de de kang a shu zhe wei na 그 가려서는 어당이 냐망이 것이분이 로고야고 제스 부주스 지상이 다 디깅알이야 로고체나 제투그레서 비게 레와자주 야요로와다 레와자고로와 레와자고로와 당어도 되게 지드미유라 되게 용으로와 안디나시 냠답에 마주sem잠지라래 딘치모 깨딘치모레 지상 델리아 콘줄리아 강한 체듀고 지상 콘종알이야 레와자고 지상 말레레와 마견은 저는 술레와자고 다 콘줄 달랑알 깨딘 소소기 ben에 딘정라도 지딘레이나 소소를 판도 마도한 판도만나 소소 지 판가야 마도한지로 소소 강아지는 어 나를 키로고 치러시 레와 때문에 제라 레와 야네 그 로고 지그레선 빙안솔이야 땡세시라라고 말요 말와 지진의 제세 지직 말. 但 남경 안서 빼 야고 제와제 안파 야고시우 직경 등연지려 안 소소 강아지가 얼콜 로고 지러지랍나 그 레바 제긴 안솔레 레와 첨부여로 와다 가서는 소스 넘긴데 첨부하고 야고 지더라 어디 나신 셈전 탐지게 하려야 진치 뭐 깨진치 뭐 제샤바래 지상 건조게 다대 강아 되는 체득갑라 말이야 레와 자고 지상 레와 마게는 샤나 술 자고래서 되네 삼당 고래제.
For example, those who we recognize as having shown us great kindness in this very life. Now that we are adults and they're older, and when they're experiencing tremendous difficulties and they find themselves in a desperate situation, they naturally turn towards those that they have helped and still have a good, close relationship with, turn towards us, hoping for assistance. And because of the bond that has been formed and recognized in this life, we tend to respond to them willingly. We tend to want to be there for them in their time of need. And similarly, when other people are in a desperate situation, they too turn towards those that they are close to. They are not so likely to turn towards strangers because they aren't aware of much of a bond with a stranger, and they know the stranger is aware of no bond with them. So therefore, they don't tend to even think to turn towards a stranger, but to turn towards those with whom they do have a close and warm, mutually beneficial relationship. So now, through our meditations, where we consider closeness towards all, a tenderness towards all beings, we here see that they are in a desperate situation. These beings who have all without exception cared for us when we were vulnerable, been there for us when we were desperate. Thinking like this then, a natural wish to repay their kindness arises.
네 심전 탐지 되게 강아 투리 다 심전 되기 나랑줄이야 안에직 언이 직강하세야 직 알레 로봇이나 셈비 나랑줄이와 야구교르베스네 근데 지문에 신에 레바 자고 말와다 벤데 심진 빠도 매봐요. 자상게 가서 뭐시야 뭐신 말와다 뭐 마신데 저기야지 말와. 아니 냠다베 심진 냐로다 아니 지가저 갱호로로다 되네기 안지 심진 자로다 되네 뭐보다 거기서 강아 휴테도 가서 파 로봇이야 저는 거기서 저로로마도 어제 로봇이야 있는 거 로봇으로 해서는 먼저 레와 잡지 가서 로봇이야 레와 잡지 로봇이야 된다 용으로 해서는 이 각오로 와서 가서 뭐신 거 말 거기서 디오 가서 로고치아 조베네 파드르고 지자딩 가서 삼나나네 디용구로와 심전다제다 신랑의 진침보래 갈이야 아니 콘저 동아세야 된 갈레와 자구거레스 땡갈레 레와 마침도 술을 자고레스 비 삼다디 디기 민두스 가르세네 심전다제 무인에서 툼바 차기 민두스 가르세네 심전담제 갈이야 간스 레와 자고레 심전담제가 뭐 신고 말에 안데 통고 말에 미카시지 니마도 아니 Geshe Thubten Rabten yuebene kanga yuebene ngazo kanga seya jodo kozu joyechi hena ge jogumado ngazo roba chiro chi yongbe nuas chizadi samta dadi nguyene ste metin baji samta ne dagas pandos kayong mare sambidin samsiroa.
I hope then what has been said seems very not only worthwhile but achievable in terms of cultivating within ourselves. But in terms of actually fulfilling the hopes of others and aiding them in their time of desperation, here many doubts should arise because we know how difficult this is. We know how difficult it is just to help those that we already have connection with in this life, and we are aware of that connection. We know how difficult it is to aid them in their time of need. What about limitless sentient beings? What about those in the unseen realms, or even animals who we can see and we have an affection towards? They don't tend to turn towards us because fear arises. They don't see us as someone who can help them. Due to fear, they think they may be harmed. And if we were to approach them, they will flee in terror. And this is the actual situation that we find ourselves in, that it's really difficult to fulfill the needs of others.
지난 다 능고인이 소리에 심전 탐지 인간들 영어신 말에 안센든도 되게 랭아주 영어신 말아주게 되는 안들이 직로바 제기 자와 직직으로서는 능고인이 지고 말와다 뭐이신 지고 말에 아니 지고 말어 이내야 아주도 삼 땅고 그래제 능고인이 수대 디 말에 이내 아주도 삼 땅고 아주 로려도 삼 땅고 그래 삼 땅와 있나 가른 거래서는 디니다 다 소설야 로고 지금 할이야 저거 말 말에는 저 맞는 술 자고라 선배 삼당에도 소수기 펠이야 근데 로고 저거다 kunzhen ngala ya roba yawa shu kya de ro ma chen nga ngo sa sam sam jing ru wa che mi ji nga zo ngoi ni so mi ji nga zo de ka nga shu chi ji nga nye ma khong ngala ya nga zo ya wo shu che da de ne ga ble khong ka nga shu the de ka ble de ko ka nga se le nga zo ya be rawa ji ji rawa ja ba na nga zo ge ha go ko rawa ji ba ha go ya delya so ro ma che ben de ngo sa ya da ne sham len ji ge di ro 지난 중고서 체면서 차고 지다 니네 인자 어디 로버체게 되어 지기로 니 나신 심전디도 지나가도 삼로 나라도 다제 삼로 다와 있나 심전 다제 강아 냠다 와 다데 갈래 로봇 제고 갈 말은 술래 제고래 삼배 삼다에도 소수기다 녀망아도 딘치모 깨딘치모 말 삼다와 깨딘치모 삼 술래 깨딘치모 슈 깨딘치모래 지상 갈래 되어라 와진 가 건설 팔만 마루 내가 빼사래 가 노트시모 가 빼마스 마랍차기레스 딘 삼네 누시는 아주 파 깨딘 컨트롤에 펜버두 얘기 삼로디 되버디 슈첼리고래 지상 안저 심전라 강아세 디기주비에게 심전라 펜베 삼바디 삼로디 슈첼 용약이 된다라 di samtangor dine samtabe na nganjugi samlodi pembi samtaedo shukchele thugorwa dikege dandala ta semje namje ralya nge chik duschine rewa majaba ine dine gam gyagor dine chikne jegor sabe samtabe na nganjulya semshudi kehegi lela yongorwa di denza di sam dine samtangor esigorwa da.
So that is the actual situation, that if to the extent that we give rise to the wish to be of benefit to others, it doesn't mean we can be of benefit to them in the way they need us to be right now. But that doesn't mean that this training is pointless. We still have to train our mind in this way. In fact, it's essential we do train our mind in this way. We need to come to the point where we recognize that it would be shameful to ignore others in their time of need, that it would be shameful to turn our back on others when they're desperate, especially when they have been there for us so many times in the past. The purpose of generating the sincere wish to be of benefit to others, give rise to this deep strength of mind to be of benefit to others, is precisely that. In this part of the training, despite our limited ability to actually be of benefit to others, what we are training in is developing the wish so that we can benefit others in whatever way we are able to. We're generating the wish to do so. And this then will serve as a basis for later practice. So here, it's imperative we develop our strength of mind and the commitment to help others every way that we are able to now.
Andene delia ma de dungal drowa yang dala miwa no sula pap sirda chesa ma de ge dine semjen de dunga dine nyam thaba resha dine dungal drowa droya ge thapsheba de ngale Laga the Gending, Alesha, Laga laid cup, do city cups Baba and Alesha, Chesa, Nala Bagut, Ngay Chiho do, Ngay Machina, the switch horse, Tangala, Dunga say, the Carson Conson Alia Dinchimbo, the Kitchen Chimbo Shura, Sulu Kitchen Chimbo, Panto Yako shoot, the consul Ganga didn't say to that, Ni Parkanga Timasev and the Ganesi horse, then Jason Consul Ganga say, Gending, Ala Papshas, Sulbag, I imagine the switch horse says. The
next line in the text. If responsibility for them does not fall upon my shoulders, upon whom's will it fall? So here, we're taking personal responsibility to be there for others, to aid others, not allowing the excuse of someone else more skilled can take care of them, someone else can do it. We're recognizing here that in our many times of need, these individual beings were there for us. We only could survive or have the comforts that we did because they were there for us. Therefore, it is our responsibility to stand up and be there for them now, and be there for them to the very best of our ability. Therefore, we have to train like this.
Dene dinjen manam yawa done rangjibu kowa le jitar chena dele cheda ngosa chungwa miwongs. Chizna
the text continues. If I ignored these kind beings and worked only for my own liberation from samsara, what lack of conscience and consideration?
That dinje manam sido, yawa dorne sido. Cheza that's denigi ranglia dinchembo, gedinchembo, jondige semjendige, denigi kanga tidu kabla, ni yawa dorse, ni nangmeje, shache. 소소 라랑 디기 주야다 아니 소소 라랑 디기 주 소소 라 타바톰네 디구도 선배 삼라나 노트 시우레지 제가 야와 되네 랑지부 코와레 지다르 제나 아니 델레 체다 ngoso chungwa 미워스 베 ngoso 쳔보다 가소레 ngo차메바다 체메바레스 체메바 차고레스 제가 소소를 진체모 깨진체모 디게 바 통해도 대소가 동화세야다 동화세다 바 낭매시 균에 선마다지 소소라랑기 동화세야다 안지 코알레 드러나 선배 삼다되바이나 냠린 람 냠린 제겐 집에네 소소라랑기 디기 코위기 탈바 토야기 삼다되바이나 이네 네 제금 와사다 체메 딜레 아니 지게 누아지 요마레 사시고
This line then starts by a recognition for oneself, or within oneself, that how can it be appropriate when beings who have shown me so much care and kindness and tenderness, now, while they remain in the state of desperation, a state that's almost hopeless, how can I just ignore them at their time of peril and work for my own happiness? How could such a self-centered approach be appropriate? How can I turn my back on them in their hour of need when they were there for me so many times? If I work for my own happiness now, that is unforgivable.
지산 다심전 남지 진치보단 끄딘 침보 심전되게 다디 내가블라 다나 주기 냠다비 코와를 깨되긴 되게 아니 가르쳐왔으네 대와 대와도 되고를 동아 되고 말때 이내야 대와 용하게 된다라 되자 콘도 나게 녀모게 녀모메 디왕게 대와 용하게 살로 동아 용거를 지산 되니게 냠다비게 심전 동아 용 되긴 되게야 랑레 진치모에서 네 다디 콘솔리아 펜바지 마두바나다 아니 지게 베마시베가 모사메바단 체메바시고 지리 소설이야 강아 가스 디기 유튜브체 소설이 펜바야 와주드는 데라 다 강아 유디갑랑이 파 안로버체 마던 때가 베마시 모사나 모사 체메시리 벤 두샤시부레 선제 디네게 삼당고레시고로 와다.
here where we be guided in this point of the meditation is having recognized our close and intimate and entwined relations we share with beings, and their tremendous care and kindness that they have shown us so many times, and that they, desperate for happiness, freedom from pain and misery, but have no idea how to achieve it, and in fact continue to create causes for ever more misery. How can I turn my back on these kind mother sentient beings who are continuing to fall off the precipice into ever deeper suffering and misery? To be shameful not to be there for them, be unjustifiable to ignore them in their time of need.
Dan che meba se to so su gi shan gi rang ya de ji ge ji ya bo shu che ba de la so su gi da gang a che so su le re wa ji pa nga zu gi ro ji ko le pe ba ji ma du ba ne en jan da ge khala ro da be mi de de ko le be ya bo che di ko le ya di ji min do da ko gang a che de pa ro ba ji min do a se be ge mi shan da yi ne an ma ka ba cha da sang ye dan jen ji zen ba la so be ge qian bei ne ma ka ba cha de ji san xian le dui ne yi ne ngi di jie tang di ji min do no zhe cha ru rang le sam da wei ne ngi jie tang ma di ba cha ru ji san so so ya de ni ge nyam da be gang a di so so ya dung an se ge de ja wa ge ngi di dung an ma se ba rang le dui ne ma di ba de xia le yun de ma song wa da ji me cha de be no zhe cha ge du da mi shan ge ne你现在对不呢？我打电话呢，现在对的车上先车上马好话车给的身旁边的，我打的要不几个民那的这个度假几个都还身边上面解决呢，要不要嘛的话，等于是现在对呢要不要嘛，然后来对呢要不没都是我的，所以要不几个的呀，国家不是的，说是个怕这要不马街白呢，还搞出以前的马街白呢，说是对呢，两个的这个嘛的话。마지 바로 아주 못 참여 봐서 소소 때는 이 많이 이 맞은 땅에 지금 말어 왔다 레균의 숨으면도 수야고 파야고 맞은 지금 놓아서 제데 제네 제 고고를 때 맞아 샤샤바는 대랑을 때는 지금 못 차와 차로 버려 나 현재 삼다베네 소수기 수야고 야고 지금 될야 아니 강한 체도 소소를 레와 저기 파지 지금 약보고 맞아바네 미션이 가를 그래 어디 미디 야고 면도 안 제 미션이 소소야 안지게 삼존나라 미 야고 면도 그 되는 지도 왔으면 비게 안 삼존나라 미션다한테 통그래 안 상계다 전주선 봐 kenyon 당원시 유간 따위네 코로나 개인 정보 판도 쉬우지데 너는 되는 강아체 레워게 파로 지금은 선배 삼론 깨베나 미션라 되네 마디바 차그로 진짜 랑라 되네 마디바 진짜 뭐 참여 봐 차로고 샹라 되네 마디바에서 뭐 체며 봐 차로고 두섬 다베는데 니디 로바 팜 로바 마제베네 랑라 되네 지금은 샹라 되네 지금은 지나라지 니가로 되베네 니 마제베네 빼사래 진짜 로바 제고도 선배 삼다야 되지
In the sentence, the terms you have lack of conscience and consideration are usually translated as shame and embarrassment. So the difference then between shame and embarrassment is that when we have the opportunity to help and we have the capacity and the ability to help those in need, we don't do so. This is shameful. This is shameful, and it's something we should recognize within ourselves. So from our own recognition, we should recognize that this dear Mother Sentient Being, who has been there for us so many times, and now is in a state of desperation and is almost reaching her hand out to us for help. And if I do not help her, when I have the capacity to do so, I should feel ashamed. So that would be the meaning of behavior being shameful. And then embarrassment is how others would look on it. Perhaps the community of those that we aspire to join, such as the Bodhisattvas, or even society as a whole. When those people, those beings recognize the close and intimate relationship that we have with this being in the state of desperation, when we do not help them, when we are not for them in their time of desperation, they will denounce our self-centered behavior. They will criticize us and denounce our selfishness. So that is the meaning of these terms, which we can translate as shame and embarrassment.
아마당 부니디 사지산다지 루고를 시래 아디 둠로시다 오이네스마 둠시고 둠세나가 베로시고다 직두고레스 도디가다 람가들베 람가 충충 네 양당 데네 자 슈여 되게 람가 데네 시어레스 나데네 조디 데데 곰바자 데네 곰바자 조디 아마디기 람가 줘야돼 네 약미기 하고 통고 말 이네 켜르지네 약고 줘두고 말와 마도데 아네 데네기 아마디게 레와 가르쳐서는 부딜라 레와 자기로 와다 레와 아마디 당아딘 마줘야지 양을 마사지 탄 줘야지 당인디 부로 지기리에 선비게 부를 레와 차사요래 제산다 아마디 지 람가딘 마 양을 마사지 약부 티에디 개인의 수로였으나 부딜 여대로 와지 개인 차사 여로 와다 가선 아메게 충충의 까브라랑 야 빼전부지 소가 제와 휴지 쇠장아 야고 지상 니디 아마디 마 람간 바두스네 지게 양마 사마지 야고지 삽스 티에디 차상 내 맞는 수제고로 해서 비게 다 부들이 괜찮아서 여대로 와다 지상 부들이 괜찮아서 여대로 와 빼디나시지에서 오다 지상 괜찮아서 예신비가 아마디게 레와자바나시 부디기다 아마디 로마시 바체 부호란 제 땅에 진데는 남가르바 지우진 바 지조샤바이나 아마디 샤샤바이나 되는 것을 체매로 하다 미천다 통회네 안 소소다베네 레균데 주고 말에 노트시오레 미샤다이나 오다 아메게 야고솔로 되네 아마강한테 부디 로고 지금 민도세데 미천다이네 다나지고 정어자 체매 차고로 그래서 되네서 부디리 괜찮아서 아마디 람가들 야고 양마사제 야고 조투에디 괜찮아서 부디리 요레스 나르예스 부디 나르예스베 삼노나 디코르자 부디 아마디리아 로고 지고로 괜찮아서 진짜 아메디 가야 레와 겨고래 네야 아마디 깨진 첨보래 세상이 아메 가를 다데 아마 이제 야고 조도 공부 야고 자도 미야고 통고 말 네 강한테도 네 로고 맞는 수지고래서 배 삼로치 이제 용구로 와 되네 여봐이나 아메 부디 아마디레야 로고 지기로 와 언디 나신 베디 나신 지나가 저다 삼다디 아마디데 나신지다 나 심지 탐제랑레 진침뭐 심지디게 삼다 랑기 아마딜이야 등이 아마딩할 레와치 니 로고 맞은 술정 로고제 아말 로고제 사서 개인 세상알 바부에 삼비 삼다와 나신지네 심지 동화세 차사 등이 맞은 수지 제사 심지 동화세 차사디 개인알 바부에 세데 삼다에도 진행이 지긴 등이 제후도 선배 삼로디 기투고로 어두스는 삼당 고래저와.
An illustration that I'd encourage you to use in meditation is you reflect on the kindness of your mother of this life, how she raised you with care and with gentleness, always doing the very best she could for you within her own limited capacity. And that she was always there for you when you were vulnerable and in need. And now that you've grown up and she is aged and she is frail and unstable on her feet, she now relies on your support. And let's say the two of you are on a walking journey together and you embarking along a trail which is along a steep precipice. At such a point, she will undoubtedly reach out for a child to guide her, because she recognizes she's vulnerable and she's in harm's way. And what child would not be there then for her mother? What child would ignore her mother then? How could it all be suitable to either send your mother off on her own or walk ahead, letting her fend for herself behind you? If one were to do so, how would it not be shameful? How would those in society not criticize one for such a self-centered attitude? The only appropriate thing to do would be to take her hand and carefully guide her. So reflecting on an illustration like this, in dependence on all the previous meditations you have done, it's easy then to apply this illustration to our actual relationship that we do have with others, and therefore our responsibility that we have for them.
Da dena manam gi korwi gi dede changba da gyachin so jinye ji topjang da ma tupsen dene Jisa da dena manam gi korwi gi dede changba da gyachin so jinye ji topjang da ma tup ane de dagi dagi rang yawa dwane namkha da ni be semjen tham ju khoyu dungol le chade tarba lana mi be dewala jine jang go bar chawo sashi.
Turning to the text again. Furthermore, if they attain the various pleasurable states of samsara, just as those of Brahma and Indra, their peace would not be eternal. From now on, I will think less of myself and more of mitigating the samsaric suffering of the living beings as vast as space. By every means possible, I'll work for their enlightenment in order to be able to place them in the joy of peerless liberation.
Dena manam yu khurwigi dede changba da gyajin jinyi su cho topjang da ma du sidu ne semjen ham jege semjen gi ane rangi tingi kyabe semjen de yu khurwigi dewa benenga zu khurwi dewa na da le la je li na ne ja da la na ne yaksho changba da gyajin sa da changba da gyajin gi gewa len bai na da kangba da ne kang da be wang che da yu ji dewa xiu jue ding ji ga zu gi khwa na ya 직대와 코노도 체쇼로 치차고로와 지사 데니게 망부 뇽요로 와서다 레게 개와레 뇽요레 안 지게 상배 개와라 개진에 개와 데니게 지 코위기 데데 대와단 제부 망부 롱죠 이네 데니게 진이지데 롱죠베나 딱바 템부요 말이죠 자자 딱바 템부 메바자 그냥 데소파 짐 레게 제부디 민 조데 다냥 레다 뇽모 원기 아니 레다 뇽모 마바마자 디 원기 야자 개와레 제야 가브릴리아 냐와다 둔로다 데니게 개와레 둥아 파트메바 뇽고야 디 차그도와 시다 데니게 지 가브릴리아 데스 대와로 슈콜베 대와 데스 뇽베나 딱바 띵부 메바레 지상 기지 지로 조로고레 조하네 당한 지기 뇽모바지 마바바이네 띵이 대와디 내가 콜웨 대화 하다 상바다 개진이 되고 톱나야 뇽모마바자 디데데 대화 띵이 대화래요 말이야 유유둥아 세지 그래서 유유신데는 아주 그냥 냐와다 너서 막 계지 동안 용고래 와서지 되는 수능이서라.
Looking at the first of those two sentences, furthermore, if they attain the various pleasurable states of samsara, such as those of Brahma or Indra, their peace would not be eternal. So here we are reminded that samsaric beings have experienced at many times, no matter what their current state is or status is within cyclic existence, they have experienced unimaginable pleasures far more fabulous than even we can imagine right now, pleasures beyond that of even the super rich, the pleasures of the gods. They have been experienced by all samsaric beings many times. But the fact that they are not being experienced now shows that that experience was not stable, it wasn't lasting. So if we help those that have been so kind to us, if we help them in a material way, or if we help them in a way that even helps them have more comfort and pleasure, material or samsaric pleasures will not last. They're not reliable, they are not stable, and they cannot satiate the need within. So therefore, no matter what material benefit we give to those that we care for, it cannot protect them from the danger that they are in, the danger of potentially falling into the lower realms.
rang chanya digi duya da rangi digi duya chanya rangi digi duya rangi dunga samta dunga se samta shengi dunda ma semjen rangi dinjingi semjen digi samata digi duya dunga duya samtang mindu jesa dini za rangi notru karatsen rang chanya samta di norshas jesa da rang yawa dur se rangi rangi samlo nga digu nga dunga se rang chanya samta di samlo de rang jizing samlo ba jaje ane garchi orese nengi semjen namkada nibi semjen tamchi koyu dungale chade lana myoyando zubi lana mibi dewala jine yuko barchawa je semjen tamchi digi dungase koyu dungade ba se dungadele chade ngi ya sanji ko male koyu bar koyu yin sembi ki dus chine samdang gore jire.
Reflecting then on the lack of value that samsaric pleasures have, that change momentarily and not reliable or lasting, we then remind ourselves that until this point, we've always remained obsessed with achieving our own happiness and largely unconcerned with the welfare of others. And this has not achieved our own welfare nor that of others. Therefore, it is time to change. It's time to transform our situation. It's time to live up to our potential and our responsibilities. And that's presented in the final sentence. From now on, I will think less of myself and more of mitigating the samsaric suffering of the living beings as vast as space. By every possible means, I will work for enlightenment in order to be able to place them in the joy of peerless liberation.
Dāngā tsukī jīnsō gōm gōrē sēdō gōm yé dīrē dā kāsā rāng jīzīng dātā pādō rāng jīzīng yé samlō tīgī wāngī yé xēn yāwā dō rāng jē bācīn dīnī kē yānyā lēgā chē shā dī nō chū chū shā dīnī yé dā rāng jīzīng sāmbāt pā shā chē xēn sēmchēn dīgī chū yā dō dūngā sēyā dī yā bēchū chīgī chē sāng xēn sēmchēn tam chē kō yu dūngā lē chā chē yā sāng yé sā kō bā lā 고야기 미 탑시 지hin생이 지긴 두sam다 디sam다에 고미야데다 맞아 진소 공바세 로로려 진소에 잠 진소 공바세 디차거와.
This brings us then to the essence of the meditation on repaying the kindness. It is the recognition of the role that the self-cherishing mind has played in our lives up to this point. That it is through acting under the control of the self-cherishing mind that we have ignored others, that we have ignored our kind mother sentient beings in their times of desperation again and again, and that we have to transform the situation, rather cultivate the other cherishing mind and come under the guise, the sway of the other cherishing mind, because it's through its cultivation that we'll always place the welfare of others at the forefront of our attention. So this is the meaning of repaying the kindness.
Then di gomya di dadi di gomya de tang juge deji nyel samda di chasa denigi gyumje samda denigi simjen tamju khoyu dungal traji pamba tu jenle pamba du gudu sempege samloda simjingi dunga se gudu di khot digi du gudu sempege pamba dugi sempe samlo jela 당보 김전디기도 삼다네 심전 탐제 랑길라 진천보 임바레 안 다디기 갑라 콘슬리아 안직 되자 콘로 ngaje nyomoje nyomo ongi nyomoje di ongi lesa denigi semmaji wada kanga manguwa sabe samda deniza da 콘조 랑라 진천보레 지상알레 진천보 다 디린 콘조 kanga di ngei masen 땡 수시게 nga se 오도와 말야 기엔징알 두 사베 삼당 두 삼다디 저기 제바제 시럽기 시럽기 제바제 잼비지 시럽기 제바제 제바제네 내가 좀 이 가르쳐고도 랍니다 콘주기 동아디기 파 세제 동아딜라 타르제 산조 고마 토발이야 고고도와 사베게 시럽기 제바제네 담이 타줘라 제바제비 좀리에디 갈리고서는 콘주 동아레 세제 코 동아딜라 타르제 산지에서야 고고도 사베 고고도 세메 담에 타르 딜레응으로와 된데서 디 고고도와 선배 되네게 삼로디 당한 주게 검제네가 제지도 그 디랑 삼다 semjadu dunga ta sanje sal yangi kuigin sambiga samdana kombaina ta jogomna charuwa dene za ta dondala ma deji se samda gyumchen du se samda waina semjen tamji dunga se digi dubya jigin sambe samlodi ma du shukche le tugo dile ge dondala jeba je deji gyumchen samda de disu chagruwa.
As with all the other steps in the meditation, to bring about transformation, start with putting our emphasis on analytical meditation, using our wisdom, investigating the actual relationship we have with others, this close and intimate relationship we have with all others, and recognize then the true relationship that we have with them in terms of the kindness they have continuously shown us, or repeatedly shown us, and giving rise to this sense of responsibility to repay that kindness towards them. But we're also recognizing that they are in the precarious situation they are in because they have no freedom. They are controlled by their afflicted minds. And as long as beings remain under the control of their afflictions, they will suffer. Thereby, we give rise to the strong determination that in order for beings that I have a strong connection with, to be influenced by me, guided by me to a state of the attainment of the state of freedom, I have to become that skilled guide. I have to achieve Buddhahood for their sake. And then when we give rise to this determination to become Buddhas for the sake of others, we then switch from analytical meditation to placement meditation, and we abide, we rest our mind with this realization. And thereby we strengthen habituation to this realization, deepen it within us. Then we keep repeating the process of further analytical, further placement. And through this combination of analytical and placement meditation, we'll rapidly deepen our transformation, make these realizations ever deeper and more transformative within us.
당은 저기 되네 공부하네 야 되네 삼 나눠줄래 남도 되네 용식이래 지상 샘젠 되네게 삼다지 샘젠 탐지 동화세시 동화세 당이 펜버도 샘제 동화세다 강이 세기 아니 샘제 탐지 상계설랑이 고인세데 되네 삼다나 나 소선이야 누버 가야 매바지 매바지라 삼다는 아니 다스러와 변에 소설이야 안지기 매바지리야 두 삼다네 되네 삼단의 판도 루트에 말해서 지상 소속이 가고 제투의 민두와는 변에 야선당이 냐다 지금 사가 부족마 차상에 상에 살고 네디기 콘주디기 시기신 가르치에 투야요 생각해야 제투의 민두와 매반자 소설의 제투야 가면 네 지긴 삼든데 한 번에 와서 노트를 와서 판도스 가야 민두와 되네 삼단 이제 준비에 태야스 가야 민두 선비게야 디 samdana nodu resha di bejes kai minu sambeke tadi tu kiero sugu sambe samlo yosigirwa.
An important recognition will come here, and it will come in the form of a doubt, thinking to ourselves that I have given rise to this wish to free all mother sentient beings from suffering and pain, to lead them, place them in the state of enlightenment. But really, how can I do this? How can I do this? The ocean, for example, is full of beings. How can I help even just one fish? What can I do to help just that one sentient being? So this is a doubt that should arise, and it's an important doubt to arise.
요마레 이내 소수기 디네 판도 차상에 강한 세 투야다 타바 탐지 김고 고발 고 투야게 소설 뉴바스카 요마로와 매봉은에 덴바레 이나양 땅아 저기 디네 삼땅바이나 삼노디페 니 지긴 셈베 삼노질레바이나 아니 가르치기리람나 당에 가는 제후도 스베게 탑시디 삼땅그로와 니 지긴 삼노마다나 건도 누가를 타야게 탑시디 삼노 코랑 땅 말와 제가 네 제고도 네 지긴 사배 삼로 숙천부 빼 심슈게 바이나 땅에 가는 제고도 탑람 가르도스 탑스데그로 와 탑스데도 안 가르쳐 왔은 디네 제라 녀랑에디 연테는 아디 톱고도 네 신고도 네 신바이나 컨트롤 베지 다 도사레스 베게 빈 지상가 가라 사지고 봐 톱고도 지상에 사지고 봐 돈도 컨트롤 편 동아세 투고도 선베게 데니게 제사 데니게 심슈게 바이나 디세에게 탑람데 다다 메나야 디세에게 탑람 주위에게 소소 탑람 주요로 받아 지상 탑람데 찌네 하원 소소기 탑람데 소소기 주위에 심주 셰이리고래 지상 탑람데 가라서는 산주고바 토야 되려봐 지상 데니 장이 산주고바 토고 지상이 산주고바 토바 지우스 베게다 산주고바 토비가 람냠리 제알 베수 슈시 체체도 지상 데니게 심주 기요데 베네가 좀 지덴바 다가로 받베네 지게 저기 기기나라 롭종 가리위나다 지 대단님들 대화지지 권종님들 대화지 야고 수요선 베데 당연히 기에 신고 막 하르서는 진이 어다디 일 장고 디 장소는 이 신소는 권솔리 대화지 두고 판도지 두고를 선배 삼리고로 안디나시르와 베능아 저기 갸소나는 쯤자주 갸소나는 쯤자주 마지 팀들 송급제하죠로와다 진 당보는 당아주기 어다지 건조 송급 제긴 선배 삼을려도 안 제려 안주기 디 장도르제 롭종제 장도르제 안 장도르제에게 삼 dum벌이요 장도르제 사나 되는 송급제 두고로와 안디 난지 바자고로와
Such a doubt really is appropriate, and if it arises, this is a doubt, a very beneficial doubt in that it is in accordance with reality. Because how can we right now help many beings, let alone all beings, let alone those who are completely different from ourselves? But this does not mean that the meditations we've done should be discarded. Rather, we should see that they are indispensable. Because meditating successfully in this way leads to a transformation within us, a transformative wish to help others. And due to the intensity of this desire to be of benefit to others in a time of need, we will look for a solution. And through our studies, we'll know that that solution is to become a Buddha, the most skilled of guides, the guide who can appear in the forms and communicate in the style that is most effective for beings. And now have what we have understood previously, that it's Buddhahood, or becoming a Buddha, that is the most suitable outcome, we now have the strength of mind. Through this generation of this wish to repay the kindness, we have the strength of mind that not only to look for the solution, but to implement it, to strive to become a Buddha for the sake of others. And it's through this strength of mind that we develop the strength to commit to living a life of great meaning, a life for the benefit of others. And this is, we can see in a smaller way, in the context of ordinary life, that someone when they're young who loves the ocean and really enjoys their time at the seaside, they see the importance of the role that a lifeguard plays, that the security that parents have, that their children are being cared for by skilled professionals. They thereby give rise to the wish, when they're a bit older, to also become a lifeguard, and then they train in becoming a lifeguard so that they can become a skilled professional who can aid beings in the time of their need. So that's a similar approach. We need to develop our way of thinking here, see what the need is that others have for us, and see how we can fulfill it, and then we'll have the strength of mind to do so.
인지 로버지 투마를 셈비게 삼로 셈주 코론 콜즈 로버지 판도 지긴 셈주 코론 매마자 가지고 아딩이 지 투마를 셈베 삼레디요 봐 담미 가시기 셈주 있는데 다 눈버 빼 개합 타는 거 산다 좀 엄마신 보이네 데니게 강아 여바다 암조 고에도 어다 데니 강아 니제 다 강아 디니 세게 니 톱시 니 세고도 셈베 삼다에도 코론을 세기 니바 가르요라스네 데니 코르들 비규벤저 토네 로버지 투레스네 그런 매르와다 메디언 가르섬 코에 가르치 버스네 따디네 강아베 직 세고도 셈슈 시고 기어도 당하이 강아세 톱시디 가르치 버스네 변주를 톱시에 누릅지야다 변주디와 현대슈야다 데네게 직 탑도 가르치 토베네 데네 전 변주 사야제 사이게 톱시디 베지 땅 거로 톱시제네 베지 땅에도 변주 사바이나 라바이나 안 바로 로버지기로 와다 데네 심슈 유엔쪽이 데네 제투고로 와 소소에 가야니라 소소리 변주 가야 매나야 안 데네게 심슈 시부기어도 심슈도 디토네 안 변주기 땅에 가르쳐 왔는 건조 강아 전 추매발로 추 강아제 면기 강아 세고 제고도 세상 사야도야 강아 제고 선배 삼당에도 로버제고도 선배 심슈 시부기어도 소소를 매베이네야 안 거기다 민가즈데 코로나 가고 싶으면 와라 데네 삼단에 가르치게 해서 배삼 노시기로 받아. 세상 코로나 요 말도 이내 코로나게 아니 지게. 다 탑시지야 여러 와서 그러다 탑시지야 여봐서 권위 현달의 로봇제야 다 데네 머신 버들이 현대제야 다 데네 진네 강지 토네 변주를 탑시다. 데네 탑시다는 초보주야다 데네 탑시다지 초보주 디토네 변주 레고 주 변주사 된 로봇제야 데네 가지고 점내나는 막 모여 봐도 로봇제가 되네. 지상 공소 당보나는 그런 빼마시게 규칙보다 쇼제지 로봇제 말을 와다 오네. 그런 게 셈슈게제. 강아 세고 좀 셈슈게야도 데네 셈슈디게도 강아 세게 탑람들 베주제야도 안 되네게 로봇이 두고로 안디 나신 아주네 셈제도 중앙에 자 투여게 다 등아 좀 누가 매바이네 아주 세고도 셈슈게 바이나 셈슈디게 용도 셈슈디기 강아세게 탑람 가르고도스다 탑시 가르치고도 베주 가르치고도 셈들이 용으로 되네리에서 아주기 탑람 베주시게 대지사 장시 셈게야데 게야다는 파신주기 냠는지야 들레용 거라. 제가 딜레집에 나가서 산주고 봐토야다. 나가서 산주고 봐 마토바이나 장시신 비고 봐 직토바이네 디기 셈진 빠도 매발 펜버주 두고 봐다. 얘네 자당 안 저기 누 셈지 끼고 봐디 윤세로 있대네로 와다.
When we watch the news or read the newspaper, we see the immense problems that people elsewhere are experiencing. Some countries really are in quite desperate situations. And most people, when they see this, compassion certainly will arise within them, thinking that may these strangers to me, may they be freed of these problems, may they live in peace, may they have comfort. So that arises within one. But also, for the vast majority of people, the thought also then follows, but what can I do? And they turn the page or move on to the next story. But there are others who also give rise to compassion within them. Compassion that is not necessarily any different in magnitude to what arises within us. But they have a stand-up attitude. They find that to do nothing unacceptable. They feel a sense of responsibility for those strangers. And whilst this individual has given rise to compassion, probably no different from the compassion that arose within us, because of this sense of responsibility, this understanding that it's unacceptable not to aid others in the time of need, despite having no particular skill or talent that we lack, they stand up and they do what they can for these people in distant land. They perhaps, in their community, they will arrange a collection of needed goods, or they'll perhaps fundraise, and thereby be able to make donations to suffering beings. And therefore, through their endeavors, they and through them others can ease the suffering burden that beings are experiencing. So again, this isn't because of their great compassion, their compassion that's so much greater than ours, or particular skills or talents that they have acquired. This is because of a deeper sense of shared responsibility for the welfare of others. And there are many instances that we are aware of in the world where there are stand-up heroes who face tremendous danger to help a stranger. They do something that to others on the outside looks remarkable, that they ran into the face of danger to help a stranger. This isn't because of their particular skill in these situations, but they have a particular attitude. And it's through these meditations that we develop a similar mental capacity, a capacity that takes responsibility for others, a capacity that ensures that whatever skills we have, we will utilize for others, and to recognize that we can develop far greater skills and be of immeasurable more benefit to others. So the meditations we've been looking at last week and tonight are a key requirement for the later generation of bodhicitta and the engagement in the actual 6 perfections. When one does become a bodhisattva, all these activities have incredible benefit for others and create so much virtue, propel one speedily to the attainment of Buddhahood.
심전남지기 솔야 진침부게 진침부래 심비 진침부 삼다 디네자다 심전남지 진침부자 대대내 갑라 디네기 다지게 묘모베 왕기 아니 코와라게 강한 용도 디네자다 강하딩 당이 말야 지기 니 마지나 수지형이 디딜렌 소솔야 진침부자 파디네 주기 심비 펜바 두기 삼제 콘지 동아 녀모 바디게 세야 당이 탑시지기 선배게 삼다디와 디네 인자당을 즉 두스치네 진전 세디 진소 세 삼다디 진 쇠기 로장야 등아주 다등아주 신레 펜바두기 선배 삼로딩아주 슈치고 매바자 디 삼로디 슈처당 고로 펜바두기 선배 삼로 니버치 모수고로 니쇠 자당아주 김선 삼다 진체보레 제사다 콘도다디 내가블라 강아 녀모 강아 데네데 두아 선배게 삼다 강아 여바 삼다 다디 바도 소소기 신레 펜바두고도 선배 삼로 슈침보들 마토바디 가르치는 용투바레 마토바레 랍나 소소라 랑지징의 삼로제 그디나 나랑 디고 나랑 강아시고 나랑 스베 삼로 디기 여바 랑지징의 삼로 디진데 시 야와 더시 노트 디레시 지사다 디리는 방이 랑지징의 삼로 디게 맞추바제 시행기 된다래 신 동어세야다 신기 펜버 강아세야 펜버 두기 선배 삼다딩 아주 로자야디 다디 삼로디 야네 야도 당칭 아주게 로자야디로다 진소 냠는 제세 디 삼다 차고래 어디래 다 디제라 다 진쇠데나 진쇠데 심전 펜버주에 가래라는 심전을 고야디다 대화레스 먹어야지 동아레스 진짜 심전 대화 두고 거래 심지기 동아 세고 거래스 디네 인자다 심진기 대화 두야라 심지 대화 때는 배 잡아 고미하다 심지 동아 세고도 동아다 자나니 니지 고미하디 다디 상이네 마디 잠바다 니지 고 마셔야지
I encourage you to continue these meditations on a daily basis, reflecting on the intimate relationship that we have with all beings and the kindness that they have shown us directly, lifetime after lifetime, as well as the benefits that they've brought, that so many bring to us in this life and in many lives, benefit directly as well as indirectly. And that here, in this part of the meditation, we reflect that right now, these beings who have shown me so much kindness and been of so much benefit to me in my life, they are tormented by their afflicted minds and the resulting contaminated karma. And if I don't help them gain freedom from their afflicted minds, who will? How can this not be my responsibility? So reflecting on this again and again, repeatedly over a sustained period, using the combination of reason after reason, and then placement meditation, and then further analysis, and then placement, it will have the desired effect of making us recognize the fault of our self-cherishing mind, the obsession we have with achieving our own desires and overcoming our own mere problems. And rather, we will come to see that as insignificant, as not important. We will rather value the welfare of others more and give rise to the other cherishing mind within us. So that is the purpose of this meditation. The next week, building on this, we will look at how then to actually fulfill the wishes of others. What are those wishes? Lasting stable happiness, freedom from pain and suffering. To fulfill those, we then give rise to love, the wish for the others to be happy, and compassion, the wish for them to be freed of pain and misery. So we'll look at that the next week. Thank you very much.